Scarlett and Lucas are such a burden. Scarlett doesn't give us money as much as she used to. When I opened the video sent by my younger sister Isabella, I saw her and our parents laughing together with glasses of wine in their hands as they said those words. Their faces, flushed with alcohol, looked terribly cheerful around the dinner table. As if consuming my misery were their favorite form of entertainment, they raised their glasses. Cheers to family. Hearing that, I closed the screen of my smartphone. It was Saturday night. After putting my 4-year-old son Lucas to bed, I finally had a moment of silence. I sank deep into the living room sofa and took a sip of warm herbal tea. Just then, the screen of my smartphone lit up. It was from my sister Isabella. "Look, Jack, my crazy family, haha. Next time you should join us too." The message was followed by a kiss emoji, and attached to it was a single video. Jack? I frowned at the name. That was the name of Isabella's fiancé. The message wasn't meant for me. She had sent it to the wrong person. Normally, I would have immediately pointed out her mistake, but that night was different. The phrase crazy family carried a strangely ominous tone that pierced my heart. Don't watch it. My reason warned me. But once curiosity began to swell inside me, it no longer listened. A sense of foreboding only fueled it further. As if being guided by some unseen force, I tapped the play button. The familiar dining room of my parents' house appeared on the screen. My parents and Isabella sat around the table. The camera wobbled. It was clearly Isabella filming, drunk on wine. Cheers to family. My father raised his glass. His face was flushed from fine wine, and on the table sat a magnificent roast chicken. Cheers. My mother and Isabella joined in joyfully. A light clinking sound echoed. "Oh, this wine is really delicious. Scarlett bought it for us," my mother said with satisfaction, and my father nodded in agreement. Exactly. Once in a while, it's nice to have a quiet meal together, just the family. Absolutely. When Scarlett and Lucas are around, I can't help but feel tense. Lucas is so noisy, and Scarlett always frowns right away. It's honestly suffocating. I heard Isabella's shrill voice agreeing from behind the camera. I know, right? It's so relaxing when it's just us. Their laughter overlapped, bright and carefree. And in that cheerful atmosphere, I realized that the center of their joy was the absence of me and my son. My heart tightened with a cold pain. Then my mother began to speak, her tone thick and sticky with contempt. Still, Scarlett really changed after giving birth to Lucas, didn't she? My chest stirred uneasily. Exactly. I told her she shouldn't have had that child, my father said bitterly, almost spitting out the words. This is what happens when you ignore your parents' advice. She ended up raising him all by herself. It's truly disgraceful. Don't worry, Dad, Mom. I'll never end up like her. I'll graduate from college, marry Jack, and live happily ever after. I'll never become a miserable single mother. From behind the camera, Isabella's shrill, triumphant voice rang out. My mother nodded approvingly at Isabella's words, then let out a deep sigh of exasperation, her expression twisting into one of disgust. Honestly, yes, please. Scarlett, on the other hand, ever since she started saying she has to spend more on Lucas, she doesn't give us money as freely as before. Exactly, Isabella's voice chimed in again. Now it's always for Lucas's college fund or Lucas needs new shoes. She has no idea how hard things are for us. Scarlett and Lucas are just a burden now. As if those words were a cue, the three of them burst into vulgar laughter. My father nodded and the family clinked their glasses together. The cheerful sound overlapped perfectly with the sound of my world shattering. The video ended there. To them, my only worth was as a source of money. And my son, who slightly slowed the flow of that money, was nothing but an obstacle. That's why they called both of us a burden. Those words pierced sharply through my eardrums. No correction message ever came from Isabella afterward. She still hadn't realized the fatal mistake she had made. I could clearly feel a cold, heavy lump of anger taking shape deep in my stomach. I saved the video quietly and backed it up to my cloud storage. Just in case, I forwarded it to my private email address. The next day, and the day after that, I continued to act as if nothing had changed. When Isabella sent, "I want a new coat. Can I ask for it as a little favor?" I replied, "Of course. Choose whatever you like." When my mother wrote, "We're having a bit of a hard time this month. Could you transfer us some money?" So thoughtless as always, I replied, "All right, Mom, just a little, okay?" while pretending to be the kind, dutiful daughter they expected. Of course, I would never again press that transfer button. I continued to play the role of the convenient source of money they wanted me to be. Why did I keep supporting them for so long? The reason was deeply rooted in my past. Our family had never been wealthy. I was the kind of girl whose only strength was studying, so I entered university on a scholarship as an honors student. My mother used to say, "You're our hope." I clenched my teeth and fought to succeed in the business world because I wanted to make my parents' lives easier, even one day sooner. When I received my first substantial bonus, I took my family out to a restaurant. Seeing my parents and Isabella so giddy, like excited children, was the greatest reward I could have ever asked for. After that, I decided to go independent and started a consulting firm with a few colleagues. Within a few years, the company took off, and around the time my name began appearing in several business magazines, I received a cheerful call from my mother. "Come home this weekend. We have to celebrate your success together as a family." At those words, I couldn't help but feel excited. But from the very moment I opened the door to my parents' house, that excitement began to fade. On the dining table sat a modestly presented roast chicken, probably bought from the supermarket for appearance's sake. My parents' attention was clearly not on me as a person, but on the financial value my success could bring. "Well, Scarlett, I read that article about you. Quite impressive," my father said, yet his eyes scanned me from head to toe as if appraising a product. When the brief congratulations had run their course, my mother seized the moment she had been waiting for. "So, Scarlett, you've become successful enough that you don't have to worry about money anymore, haven't you?" Without waiting for my response, she let out an exaggerated, heavy sigh. "To be honest," my mother began, "the mortgage on this house has become a real burden for us. Your father's salary hasn't gone up, and—" Her tone was theatrical, almost rehearsed. My father quickly followed her lead. "For you, it's pocket change, isn't it? According to that article about your income, paying off a mortgage on an old house like this should be nothing for you." There wasn't a trace of respect for the effort and blood I had poured into my success. His words were as casual as if he were talking to an ATM. Looking back now, that must have been the moment they stopped seeing me as a daughter and started seeing me only as a convenient source of money. My success was nothing more than a means for them to live comfortably. Their bluntness chilled something inside me. Still, I couldn't deny the fact that they had raised me. After all, everything I had worked so hard for was supposed to be for them, to make their lives easier. Ignoring the small thorn pricking in my chest, I forced a smile and said, "All right, I'll pay off the house loan." At those words, both my parents began to pour out their gratitude like a dam breaking. But before that wave of emotion could even settle, my mother put on an expression of deep guilt and spoke again, hesitantly this time. "I know it's terribly shameless of me to ask, but could you also help a little with Isabella's college tuition?" I couldn't nod right away. To be honest, I couldn't imagine Isabella studying seriously at a university. Her interest had always been in the latest fashion trends and parties with friends. Was she really planning to study for her future? Or was she just infatuated with the idea of campus life? Such doubts flickered through my mind. "Let me talk to Isabella about it first before I decide," I finally managed to say. A few days later, I called Isabella and asked her directly what she wanted to study and why. Then, in a tone more serious than I had ever heard from her before, she said, "Scarlett, you might not believe me, but I'm serious. I know I've wasted a lot of time just having fun, but seeing how hard you've worked made me want to change. I want to study properly, get into a good company, and make things easier for Mom and Dad as soon as I can. Please help me." Her desperate sincerity shook something deep inside my heart. At that time, I truly believed Isabella had finally begun to take her future seriously. I had no doubt in my mind. I promised to support her tuition, thinking of it as an investment in her future. But now, I can't help but see every word she spoke that day as a carefully crafted performance, one designed to loosen my purse strings. Their thank yous slowly disappeared, while their demands only escalated. My goodwill had quietly transformed into what they saw as their rightful entitlement. Until I saw that video, I had been blind to that pathetic reality. I had simply refused to face the idea of doubting the family I loved. That night, I made a decision to end every form of financial support I had been providing. After Lucas fell asleep, I sat down at my desk in the study. I opened my laptop and logged into my main bank's online banking system. The screen displayed the list of automatic transfers I had set up over the years. At the very top was my parents' mortgage account. Without hesitation, I moved the cursor and clicked Cancel Transfer. My finger pressed Yes on the confirmation screen without a moment's doubt. Next, I stopped the payments for Isabella's university tuition. It took only a few minutes. With nothing more than the movement of my fingertips, I had quietly and completely severed the lifeline they had long been feeding on my goodwill. I clicked Log Out and closed the laptop. The room was silent, but in my ears, I could clearly hear the sound of their future collapsing. They would probably notice something was wrong in about a month. By the time the fateful bills arrived at their door, the countdown to my quiet revenge had already begun. For about a month after that, my world was astonishingly peaceful. I laughed with Lucas at the park, buried myself in work, and went about my days steadily, as both a mother and a business owner. My family's pleas for money continued as usual, but each time I brushed them off with, "I'm busy right now, I'll check later." And then the day suddenly came. It was a Tuesday afternoon, right after I finished an important meeting with a client. My smartphone began to vibrate violently, as if possessed, and my mother's name flashed across the screen. A bad feeling ran through me. No, perhaps it was better to say I had been waiting for this moment. "Hello?" "Scarlett, it's terrible." From the other end came my mother's piercing, frantic scream. "The bank sent us a demand notice. It says the mortgage hasn't been paid. What's going on? Did something go wrong with your transfer?" Holding the phone slightly away from my ear, I replied with perfect calm. "Oh, that's strange. It should be set up for automatic transfer every month. Maybe it's a system error?" "An error? We don't have time for that nonsense. Call the bank right now and find out." "All right, Mom, calm down. I'll check it as soon as I finish work." A few minutes after I hung up, a flood of messages poured in from Isabella. "Scarlett, I just got a notice from the university saying my tuition hasn't been paid. What's happening? I'm going to get expelled if this continues. Do something now." I stared at her hysterical text without emotion and replied with just one line. "Oh dear, that sounds serious. I'll look into it." Neither of them suspected that I had deliberately stopped the payments. They both believed it must be a simple system glitch or a careless mistake on my part. Their ignorance was almost pitiful. I waited for the perfect moment, then called my mother back. "Mom, I checked with the bank, but they couldn't find the cause. Isabella seems upset too, so why don't we all meet and talk in person?" "Yes, you're right. Let's do that," my mother agreed immediately. The stage was set. On Sunday night, I asked a babysitter to watch over Lucas and drove alone. My destination, the house whose mortgage I had been paying for years. The only things that filled my mind were a calm, icy anger and an unshakable resolve to carry out everything that was about to happen. Standing in front of the familiar door, I took a deep breath. When I opened it, as expected, a tense, frigid air seeped out from the living room. My father, mother, and Isabella were sitting on the sofa, positioned like judges waiting to deliver a verdict, staring toward the late-arriving defendant, me. "What the hell is going on, Scarlett?" my father barked before I even had time to take off my coat. "Because of you, we are facing this disaster." "That's right. My whole future is on the line. Transfer the money right now," Isabella shrieked, her voice sharp enough to cut through the air. My mother just looked at me with tearful eyes and kept repeating, "Please, just do something quickly." A storm of blame came from all three of them, each in their own way. They still truly believed they were the victims in this situation. Not one of them questioned the illusion they had built, the image of me as the gentle sister and forgiving daughter who would always save them. I waited quietly for their voices to fade, then slowly spoke. "I know the reason." At the calm sound of my voice, the three of them turned to me with puzzled expressions. "It wasn't a system error. I deliberately stopped every payment." A moment of silence. They couldn't comprehend what I had just said. "What are you talking about?" my mother asked in a trembling voice. Instead of answering, I took my smartphone out of my handbag and placed it on the coffee table in the living room. Then, I tapped the play button. On the small screen appeared the dining room of this very house, the same room we were in now. Still, Scarlett really changed after giving birth to Lucas, didn't she? The sound of my mother's own voice filled the air, freezing her expression in place. My father's eyes widened, and I could see the color drain from Isabella's face. She says she spends more on Lucas these days, so she doesn't give us as much money as before. Scarlett and Lucas are just a burden now. The sound of their vulgar laughter echoed unpleasantly through the living room that had once been filled with family memories. Even after the video ended, no one spoke. They just stared blankly at the black screen that had reflected their own foolish faces. "This," I said, my voice calm and cutting, "is the reason." My tone was colder and stronger than I expected it to be. The moment you laughed at my son, and at me, calling us a burden, you stopped being my family. My mother was the first to regain her senses. Panicking, she waved her hands and forced a smile. "Wait, Scarlett, that was... well, we had too much wine. It was just a joke." "A joke?" I repeated the word slowly, letting it roll off my tongue like poison. I fought with everything in me to keep the red haze of anger from taking over my vision. "Then tell me something, Mom. The day I told you I was pregnant with Lucas, were your words that day just another joke, too?" Her face turned pale in an instant. "You said, 'It's not too late. You should give it up,' didn't you? You said it so casually, as if you were throwing away something you no longer wanted." My father averted his eyes in discomfort. "And when I brought Lucas here for the first time after giving birth, you just watched him from a distance. Not once did you try to hold him." My words made the air in the living room grow heavier with every syllable. When I was on the verge of collapsing from balancing work and childcare, not one of you ever said, "Can we help?" But the money I offered? You took it every time, as if it were your birthright, without a single word of gratitude. Isabella bit her lip, her face twisting in frustration. "Thanksgiving, Christmas, we were always left out. It's too much trouble with Lucas around." Do you have any idea how many times I've heard that excuse? I took a breath and delivered the final blow. "Do you know what Lucas said last year? He asked, 'Why can't we go to Grandma's house?' Do you have any idea how much it broke my heart to see the sadness on his face?" I slowly raised my head and glared at them, my eyes filled with hatred. And then, to top it all off, that video. Not only did you call my son a burden, but you called me, the one who paid your mortgage and tuition, a burden as well? My voice was icy, every word sharp as glass. You mocked my son, called him a burden, and laughed as if he never should have been born. And you dare to call that a joke? "Yes, we didn't mean it seriously," my mother stammered. "Don't make such a big deal out of it. It wasn't that serious." The one who cut her off was Isabella, her defiance burning in her glare. "You're rich, Scarlett. This shouldn't be a big deal for you. You could have just kept helping us without saying anything. So what if we called you a burden? You're wealthy, but your heart is so small." At that selfish, twisted logic, my anger dissolved into something colder. Pure pity. They would never understand. Not now, not ever. That's enough. I rose to my feet slowly, looking down on them as I prepared to deliver my final judgment. I'm not asking for your apology. The only thing I seek from you is atonement. I took a single business card from my handbag and slid it across the table. Printed on it was the name of my company's legal counsel. "In the next few days, you'll receive a formal notice from him. I'm filing a lawsuit demanding the full repayment of this house's mortgage and Isabella's tuition, both of which I've been paying." "A lawsuit?" my father shouted, his face turning deathly pale. "Yes. And of course, I'll also be seeking a substantial amount in damages for the emotional distress caused to me and my son. You'll lose this house you treasure so much, and every bit of your savings." "That's impossible. You can't do that. We're family," my mother screamed, sobbing. I let out a small, cold laugh through my nose. "Family? You dare use that word?" Turning my back to them, I began walking toward the front door. Panicking, Isabella rushed over and grabbed my arm. "Wait, please, think this through. We were wrong." Her voice was soaked with tears, trembling with desperate pleading. But those words came far too late. Without an ounce of emotion, I shook off her hand and said flatly, without even glancing at her, "It's already too late." The heavy slam of the door echoed behind me, marking the end of our relationship. Even after leaving the house, my smartphone continued to ring relentlessly. Calls and messages from my mother, my father, and Isabella. Apologies, begging, desperation. I didn't answer a single one. When I arrived home, I immediately blocked all three of their numbers without hesitation. It was over. Truly over. All that remained was to settle everything in court. The lawsuit proceeded quietly and methodically. I entrusted everything to my lawyer and focused on reclaiming a peaceful life with Lucas. I had no interest in knowing how they were doing. As the preparations for trial moved steadily forward and the day of confrontation drew near, my phone rang one afternoon. It was a call from my lawyer. "Miss Scarlett, I have some rather astonishing news to share." On the other end of the line, my usually composed attorney spoke with barely contained excitement. His tone made me tense instantly, fearing that something unfavorable might have happened with the lawsuit. "It's about the case. A presiding judge was officially assigned a few days ago. But in an extremely rare turn of events, the judge reviewed the case file and immediately requested to withdraw from the assignment." "Withdrew? Why, was there some kind of issue?" I could hear the tension in my own voice. Yes. And this is where it gets extraordinary. In all my years of practice, I've never encountered a coincidence like this. He paused briefly, as if savoring the drama of the moment, and then spoke the name slowly, like an actor delivering the climax of a play. "The judge's name is Christopher Moore. According to the records, he's Isabella's fiancé." Time stopped. My ears registered the words clearly, but my brain refused to comprehend their meaning. Christopher? A judge? And not just any judge, the judge assigned to this case? It was far too convenient to be mere coincidence. I was speechless. My lawyer's calm voice continued. "By professional ethics, he cannot preside over a case involving his fiancé's family. However, before recusing himself, he would have reviewed all primary evidence, including that video, as part of his official duty." At those words, everything became clear. He had seen it. The unfiltered reality of his fiancée and her family's cruelty, displayed in full color and sound. Even if they were drunk, sending such a video to him must have shattered whatever image he had of her. A few days later, I received a brief message from my aunt. I heard about Isabella. Frankly, she got exactly what she deserved. The engagement had been broken off. I didn't need to lift a finger. Their own sins had been exposed, publicly, and to the one man they most wished would never see them. I replied only, "I agree." Then I quietly turned off my phone screen. What rose within me wasn't triumph. I felt no joy in Isabella's broken engagement. What I wanted was justice, delivered through the law, not revenge. In court, that video became the decisive piece of evidence. As the recording played and their vile laughter echoed through the courtroom speakers, they could do nothing but sit pale-faced and trembling. My lawyer methodically demonstrated that their behavior wasn't simple family dependence, but rather a pattern of malicious emotional and financial exploitation. In the end, the court fully ruled in my favor, ordering them to repay the entire amount I had covered, the mortgage, Isabella's tuition, and to pay a substantial sum in damages. My parents sold the house I had once worked so desperately to protect, but even that wasn't enough. They lost every penny of their retirement savings, and what remained was a mountain of debt that would weigh on them for the rest of their lives. As for Isabella, her downfall, though of her own making, was even more brutal. She had envisioned a perfect future, graduating from college and marrying a wealthy judge. The annulment of her engagement shattered that dream completely. With her fairy tale future gone and my financial support cut off, she was forced to find a way to pay the rest of her tuition on her own. A mutual acquaintance later told me that the once proud Isabella had started working the night shift at a diner as a waitress. Now, it seems she lives with my parents in a small apartment on the outskirts of town. I have erased them all completely from my life. One sunny weekend afternoon, I took Lucas to a seaside park. As I watched him play happily in the sand, the ocean breeze brushing his hair, I felt the last remnants of bitterness within me quietly dissolve. "Mommy, look, I made a castle," Lucas called out to me, his tiny hands covered in sand. That smile, so bright, so pure, is the most precious treasure in my world. I smiled back and ran over to him. "It's wonderful, Lucas. What a beautiful castle you've built." From now on, protecting that smile is my only purpose. As long as I have that smile, I need nothing else. Holding my beloved son's small hand tightly, I walked forward with him, toward a future filled with light. That is the only and most sacred vow of my new life.